All right, we'd like to welcome everyone to our first ever fire pit chat with Mr. David Kain. We're absolutely thrilled to have him here and looking forward to having a good conversation. My name is Joe Dallas. I'm the chief business officer over here at TradePending. And today we are joined by Mr. David Kain, president of Kain Automotive. So looking forward to just a good casual conversation here, and hopefully everybody brought their cable knit sweaters and their pumpkin spice lattes and something to keep them warm in our fire pit chat, just in case you have to drop off or aren't able to sit through the whole thing. We'll just send out a recording of the webinar to everybody that registered, and you'll notice that you are muted. It's not because we don't want to hear from you. Just want to keep the audio clean for everyone. If you have a question or anything else, just drop that into the Q&A, and we'll try to get to that as the conversation unfolds. So without further ado, let's introduce here. What am I doing? I'm going to stop sharing here and then come in and boom, Mr. David Kain, how are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you, Joe. And it's fun to be here with you. I did bring a pair of gloves just in case the weather gets a little chilly for us. Yeah, here in California.
Yeah, it's apparently evening out here on the West Coast. So David and I are sitting next to the fire. So just to get things started off, tell us who you are, what you do, and a little bit about yourself, David.
Sure. So, Joe, the family that I grew up in was all about cars. The day I was born, my dad was a car dealer, and my mom and dad took us as little kids in and out of the dealership. And I was the sixth of 9 children. So there were a whole lot of resources available right there in our household to wash cars, to take care of guests, and ultimately become a salesperson. So I graduated from college after being a janitor at the dealership, working in parts and all the other jobs that you can do, and started selling cars in 1982, which sounds like forever ago, which it is forever ago. And so worked there professionally for 20 years, or I guess about 18, and probably unprofessionally for about 18 years. So as a dealer's kid. And when internet got real exciting, Ford Motor Company was making noise like they were going to sell cars direct to consumers, because they'd already started the auto collection deal where they were gathering up Ford dealerships in Salt Lake City, Rochester, New York, Oklahoma City. And so Ford was encroaching pretty aggressively on the dealer network, and the onset of internet just made it seem reasonable that, hey, if they can sell cars direct online, that's what they're going to do. So I got elected to Ford's Dealer Council in 2000, and instead of unplugging the internet, because believe me, when we got up to our first council meeting, everybody was saying, what the heck's Ford Motor Company doing getting in the internet? And that's the final frontier. They're going to work around us. So we created a joint venture, and that's how Ford Direct started. And rather than go back to the dealership after that, I spent 6 months working in Detroit 3 days a week while going back to the store 3 days a week. And we created a company. It was the first and only still joint venture in automotive between the dealers and Ford, and that was Ford Direct. And I became the first employee and chief operating officer of that company, and flew all over the US and set up internet for Ford dealers for 3.5 years. We started doing BDC work, and what was missing, Joe, is we were generating leads and doing all that other good stuff, and nobody knew how to really work them that well. So I thought, well, shoot, I know how to sell cars, and I know all about this digital stuff. So for the last 17 years, that's what Kain Automotive has done. And we're lucky we get to work with a lot of mutual customers. I met you all through Joe Chura and Bryce, your colleague, is a good
Yeah.
Kentuckian. And
Proud Kentuckian.
yes, very proud Kentuckian. And so, I come by it honestly. This is what I love to do. And I've, other than maybe become a professional mountain biker or something, I can't think of anything I'd like to do better.
Well, it's a shame you don't have any industry creds there, David. Setting up internet at Ford dealers in the year 2000, I can't imagine was an easy task, was it?
No. And dealers, as you probably have experienced, dealers will buy about anything unless another dealer is selling it to them. So when we were going in and we were saying, hey, you should try Ford Direct, dealers were curious about it, but they immediately were, well, how can we get involved? Can we be a part of? So it literally became a deal to where the dealers became part owners of it. And I think that was a big receptacle to really drive engagement by the dealers. And the funniest story is Ford Motor Company delivered the leads before we had Ford Direct via fax. And then they created a tool with Microsoft called SalesPoint. So we initially said, well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to stop all that fax stuff and we're going to start sending everything through SalesPoint. And the first CRMs that we encountered in dealerships were binders. So the fax would come out, we do a 3-hole punch and we put in the binder, and we, a couple days later, we'd call the guest or do something like that. So we pulled the plug on fax, and we had a mass rebellion. Dealers said, no, start those faxes back or we're not going to do this internet stuff. So.
Oh my goodness, man! Talk about being at the tip of the spear for a huge change. I mean, I remember I haven't been in auto that long, David, but even in 2008, dealers were still saying that the internet was bad.
Yeah.
Of course, we saw that not be true. So.
Yeah.
So we've got a Q&A from that proud Kentuckian we were talking about who wants to know how do you make a Kentucky hot brown?
Oh, well, first you start with more cheese than you can really consume, and you put that up on the counter. And then you get some bread and you toast it a little bit, and then you get a tomato and slice it. You get a little turkey, and you start stuffing it all together. You cover it with way too much cheese. You bake it and make it way too hot so the cheese kind of burns your tongue, and you have yourself a good old Kentucky hot brown. And you can spice it up that way, whatever way you want from there. And I would imagine Bryce has his own recipe.
And that sounds like a cardiac arrest waiting to happen, but delicious.
Oh yeah.
So this has been an interesting year for Kain Automotive and for your family too. So you've had some big changes happen.
Yeah, we got to move out west. My daughter was our pioneer, and she moved here 2 years ago. And in Kentucky, when you get to a certain age, you start talking about moving to Florida. And then maybe you'll be radical and move to the Carolinas or Georgia, but you're obviously going to go south from there. But when she decided she wanted to move to California, my wife and my ears perked up, and we were like, well, it's pretty warm in California, so maybe that'd be a good move. And so she kind of tipped the scale by having a grandchild, our very first one. And so a year ago, she started really putting the pressure on us, and we found the place. Took us a few months to get it together and ready. And in February, we moved in, and in March we went into COVID quarantine. And so I haven't seen all of California. I know it's beautiful. I get to drive past a lot of it, but I'm really looking forward to exploring it.
Well, that's great, man. That's a perfect segue into, one of the big things we wanted to kind of talk about is, um, as someone who's working full time as a consultant, how has COVID changed just your day to day? And then maybe we can also talk about some of the trends and things you're seeing at your dealerships.
Yeah. So for us, I was telling a friend of mine, I feel like a broadcaster. And I trust you feel the same way because you probably don't get to travel as much, but you have the microphone and you have the lighting. You almost have to have a little hair and makeup to make sure that you look good. And
Probably
so,
not quite enough, but
so, it's any given day we'll do 5 to 8 broadcasts with our clients. And what I felt like was going to be uh, not a very receptive feeling from them is it's turned into now we get to engage with them way more than we ever did before. And you don't realize what 5 hours on a flight will do to zap productivity in the day. Because any given week I would leave on a Monday, come home on a Friday, but you burn up Monday for travel, you burn up Friday for travel, and you really only had 3 good days. But now, I can be in a Zoom meeting and engaging with the team. I've already done 3 broadcasts today with different teams, and we get to do the shared screen. We go into the CRM, and it works really, really well. Notwithstanding, there are some real focused dealers that say if you don't want to come in, we don't need you. So Chelsea and Becky both love to travel, and they're young and rambunctious, and so they're doing the in dealership work, and I'm doing most of the remote work, and it's working out really, really well.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, I think everybody's had to adapt and figure out how to do this, totally remotely.
Yeah.
We had the benefit of being mostly remote to begin with, but I was just like you, frequently bumping into each other at trade shows and whatnot. So
Uh,
um, it's hard to even imagine a world where we're shaking hands and high fiving each other at trade shows anymore. But hopefully those days will come back.
Yeah, well, we saw
What's
Kim Kardashian. She just all you had to do is to rent an island and fly your best friends in, and you can have any company that you want.
I'll get the trade pending travel agency on that immediately. So, how have you seen? During COVID, we saw, digital retailing has been the thing for the past few years, but we saw adoption rates go through the roof for dealers that hadn't previously adopted a solution, and we also saw utilization of those who had already adopted go through the roof via our API partners. Um, So my question around that and what we don't really get insight to is what's actually happening at the store. And can you talk about like maybe some of the challenges and things that you've seen in the last 6 months or so around digital retailing and dealers operating in this kind of touchless environment?
Yeah. So interesting enough, as you read and watch on the news and stuff, some states just barely experienced any kind of a shutdown or rollback, and a lot of our dealers in Florida, for example, they just barely were involved in any kind of a touchless type environment. They're socially distancing and wearing masks, but their government was a little more lenient than say a Michigan or an Ohio, where we had clients that in some cases have their doors locked. And I see my friend Chip Alvey is on the broadcast from the Oxmoor Automotive Group, and he can speak firsthand. I mean, they literally had to lock the doors. Some regulators would come around in some situations and pull on the door handle to make sure the dealer really was locked out. And you would think that that would put a real damper on it, but I guess people were jonesing to get out, and so it helped create great habits around appointments. And one of our clients is Germain Motor Company. He used this phrase. He and I were talking about strategies, and he says, nothing has ever worked better for scheduling appointments than COVID, when you could say to the guest, for your health and safety, two really important things, we're scheduling appointments for you to come in, and here's how that works. And I know in Kentucky, for example, Chip and them set up little tents outside, and they would put the paperwork on the table, the guests would approach and sign, and back and forth. So dealers adapted regardless of the structure really, really well. But here's the misnomer about digital retailing. You know this as well as I do. All the elements were always there.
Yeah.
For 20 years, you could get the trade appraised. You could get the price of the vehicle. You could get the financing terms. You could get an appointment scheduled for pickup or have it brought to the home. What digital retailing did, and what the creators of the technologies have done, is they pulled it all together. They've not made it to where you don't get your trade appraised unless you see the button, or you don't get the financing unless you go to the finance page. And now everything is more in a linear progression, and yet it's friendly for the guy that likes to hopscotch around. So they don't have to follow the linear path. They can save it. They can come back. They can, get their trade appraised. They can pull it out. They can get down payment adjusted. They can, adjust their credit scores. So it's just become a really friendly atmosphere. And as you probably can guess, a lot of our dealers were freaked out, because if you look at the models like the F-Series or the Chevrolets or the Ram pickup trucks, and the configurations, and then the add-ons, the big tires, the wheels, the brush guards, the light bars, all of those things add to the complexity. So there was a lot of fear around that. And I think there's still some complexity that's there. But most dealers that we work with have said, hey, if it gets the guest more engaged, we're all about it. And so they're filling their way, and we've got some that are having remarkable success, whereas others are like, put it up on the website, but kind of hide it over here,
right.
So we meet OEM requirements.
Yeah, I'm checking a box.
Yeah.
And so you had early insight, because I know back in the day, such a big problem where you'd have a customer interact online, and then maybe send in a lead form or something like that, spend a little bit of time, and then the handoff at the store was like, oh, now what are you here for? And my perception is that's kind of amplified even more when you have someone who's digitally retailed themselves, and then the potential disconnect once you're actually at the store. Do you see a lot of that too?
Yeah, it's weird. We were talking to one of our clients in Cincinnati yesterday, and they very advanced on digital retailing. Their website's designed very much for that. During COVID in Ohio, you had to lock your showroom, so they worked by appointment. And so it was a wonderful catalyst to check the guest in when they came in for their appointment. So you'd walk up to the door and we'd say, hi, Mr. Dallas. Thank you for coming in. Let us go ahead and log you in. So they happened to use the Roadster tool. So they would log them in, and it was in the back end. So it picked up everything that they had done online, and it worked out really, really well. So those are the best laid plans, and they did really well. They were sharing with me yesterday that one of the challenges now is as people want to normalize, they're backing away from that kind of framework, and they're just popping in. They're doing the old write-up, and we're not checking them in digitally the way we were during COVID. And so the system's showing some wear and tear, and it's going to be interesting to see how that is addressed, and whether or not they opt for let's have it on the website. If the guest sees it, that's great, but maybe we'll get back to the old way of selling cars that way. And we're seeing that, Joe, I think more commonly than we expected. I knew initially with the OEM push that a lot of dealers would sign up to check the box. And then we predicted a good 50% of them, as soon as they didn't have to do it, would pull back. And that was exactly what happened. But the pioneers are saying, hey, we can do this. And you look at a Todd Caputo, the used car king up in Syracuse, New York, and him doing a really great job with it. It really starts at the top of the house, and they've got to champion it and decide we're going to do business this way.
Right. If you had to point to one thing that would holds dealers back from adopting or makes digital retailing not attractive, what is it? Is it too much transparency? Is it too abstract, or what holds them back?
Typically, it's the fear of gross lost in finance. And if you were to get a group of dealers in a room, their impression, whether it was statistically supported or not, is our finance guys really improve the gross on the deal. If we have to sell the unit just to push it, we'll make it up in the back end. And when you have that kind of non-supported opinion, it becomes more groupthink, and that becomes a prevailing approach. What we found is, in fact, one of our big clients, it's a member of our 20 group, said when they did the analysis after they put their digital retailing in, they actually saw no slippage in gross on the back end. And they still let the guest walk through it. They did what we teach every day, which is they co-navigate with the guest, and they say, Mr. Dallas, here's what's available. Here's the extended service contract that's available. Here's the protection plan for maintenance or whatever the variables are. And when the guests got to make a well thought out decision, they went for it, and they didn't see the gross drop. And I think that's the issue, is people equate digital retailing with self-service, and it's not. In fact, the right approach is to walk the path with them, and that's where we see the best results.
It's exactly the same with our tool, that transparency and trade numbers, and giving like retail comps, leaving room for a better conversation, especially in the last 6 months when you've had used car prices go all over the map. So we have what we call our TradePending 100. So we watch the 100 most in supply vehicles, and we track their average prices over time. And March, April, May, you just saw a real steep decline in used vehicle pricings, but then just the hockey stick in the other direction.
Yeah.
And they're still above what they were in January, prior to COVID. We had another interesting thing with our new product too, that is essentially website merchandising, a dynamic merchandising tool for every piece of inventory. Websites didn't traditionally allow for a lot of customizable merchandising around inventory, but during COVID, dealers needed a way to say, like, hey, we're doing 24-hour test drives, or we're sanitizing vehicles. Here's we'll deliver it at home. And so superlatives has become kind of like this methodology to really kind of stay in the moment on whatever's going on in the world, that you can now do that kind of custom messaging, which again just kind of lends to better conversations with consumers.
Yeah, it's so true. I personally, wouldn't think that would be the case. And then today I was demonstrating for one of our clients in training, the Bachman Auto Group. Friends of mine, I've done business with them for a long time. They've got this employee named Mike Davenport, and on YouTube he's known as Chevy Dude. And so he started using superlatives or the lettering on his YouTube channel. And he's already got a ridiculously huge following on YouTube. And it's remarkable when you can have those call outs, what it does to draw the guest on through. And I also was looking at a new technology or a updated technology. And, you know, when you go to Carvana and you're able to see the button and you can click on it and it'll point out a scratch or a feature. I think guests love being able to identify, oh, this is unique or this is unusual. Thanks for pointing that out.
Yeah, yeah, and you know, motivate maybe for them to get up off the couch and get to the dealership.
Absolutely.
You know? So we got about 5 minutes here. We'll wrap it up. David, any of the attendees out there, if you guys have questions, go ahead and drop it into the Q&A. But you want to tell us about, this is going to be kind of a co-plug here about the Kain conference coming up and maybe one of the awesome speakers you're going to have there.
Yeah, so what we've coined really is the awesome speaker. So everybody just calls you the now around the offices.
Oh,
but Joe, first off, you know, I love your topic. I think it's going to be interesting. The 5 elements, you know, the 5 areas that you can learn from the early pioneer days. And I don't know how you're going to translate that, but you've got this folksy way. And, you know, when I see you at our event and 2 years now, you've gone up and you've played the guitar with the band. So you're kind of a crowd favorite first and foremost, but also you won our very first Shark Tank when you presented that, and that's a vendor Shark Tank. And so our event is November 10th through the 12th. So it's coming up on us really quickly. You're going to be presenting. We're going to have 11 other workshops. And then we're going to have the best idea contest. And then we're going to have our vendor Shark Tank. So something for everyone. And it's only for 3.5 hours. And so we took 3 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. Eastern as the time. So you and I can work, you know, here on the West Coast from 12 to 3:30 and we're done.
We're done. I love it.
We'll be in good shape. But yeah, so I'd love to encourage anyone to utilize this as an opportunity to message me. I'll give them, courtesy of you, complimentary tickets in the name of TradePending and make sure that they can come. And you can come and go as you please. We're going to have some really great speakers and great topics. So.
Yeah, well, we're really looking forward to participating, and even though we're really going to miss Lexington this year, you know, hopefully I'll be back up on stage with the band in 2021. So that's always a bit of a hoot. Well, we'd like to thank everybody for taking some time. David, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. We know that you've got a packed schedule as well. So just a reminder, you know, here's the Clients and Friends Digital Success Workshop, and you know, truly kind of a familial. There's a warm and fuzzy feeling around your conference, David, that I frankly just is very unique. So
thank you.
Everybody check that out. And if you have any questions about some of the stuff that we referenced today, the trade pending products that were referenced, or or if you need help from Kain, from a consultative approach, just feel free to reach out to David and myself. And it's our information. And with that, David, we'll wrap it up and look forward to talking to you soon.
Thank you very much, Joe. We'll see you later.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.